Hello everyone, you're on the Manhwa Vibes channel. Are you ready? Let's go! Oita Prefecture, Japan. A famous foods overseas planning group meeting. A girl named Bonnie Hill has been asked to go on a blind date. The woman sitting next to her says she saw a man at church that she thinks Bonnie would hit it off with. He works for the company Bonnie works for. He has an attractive face and there is a slight age difference between them. Kim Adams excitedly tells her that the man's father is a pharmacist and his mom is a professor. Admittedly, she feels a little sorry for his short stature. In her opinion, as far as potential suitors go, he's the best. Bonnie thanks Kim Adams for her concern, but she's fine. The woman doesn't understand why. After all, he's a good man and Bonnie should definitely go out with him, at least once. Sitting across from them is Gemma Lee and she tells Kim Adams that Bonnie Hill doesn't go on blind dates. Especially if it's a date with a potential suitor. Yes, Bonnie actually has no plans to ever go on a blind date. But what's more, she doesn't want to get married at all. Kim Adams is very surprised. She wonders if Bonnie won't even marry a celebrity. Smiling sweetly, Bonnie replied, "Yes, she is." Kim Adams decided to give a more realistic example. What about their principal? If it's going to be the same person as their principal, Bonnie still won't get married. Is she referring to Principal John Moore? Bonnie's not sure. It's true that the principal's looks and skills are amazing. But it's hard for her to judge a marriage based on those two qualities alone. Kim Adams thinks that if her future boyfriend has a face like the principal, she will marry him even if he goes bankrupt. Gemma Lee said that Bonnie could just walk out of work and have a man like the principal waiting for her at home. Bonnie reminded them that the principal was not an easy character. If she lived with someone like the principal, she wouldn't be able to handle it because she would feel so smothered. HMPH, what did she say wrong? Why do they have such a strange expression on their faces? Oh, someone is standing with a bag behind Bonnie's back. That's gotta be him. Oh my god, it's Principal John Moore. I wonder how long he's been standing there watching. Bonnie hopes the principal didn't hear what she said. Joni Moore is here to announce that they can use this place to have breakfast from 6:30 in the morning until 8:30 in the morning. 9 o'clock in the morning is required to assemble in the lobby, so he asked that the schedule not be disrupted. The principal has not come empty-handed. In his bag is a dessert from the most famous bakery in the neighborhood. The girls offered to eat the dessert all together, but the principal doesn't really like sweets. Joni Moore turned around and walked away, leaving them with the bag of sweets. Kim Adams and Gemma Lee can't believe the principal actually bought it for them. After all, they know that Joni Moore is not the kind of person who would be so considerate. The girls get up from the table to go for a swim in the hot springs. Gemma Lee has heard that the outdoor springs here are an art form. Kim Adams asked Bonnie if she wanted to go with them. She politely declined and decided to go rest in her room since she was starting to feel like she was getting sick. In fact, Bonnie's desire to go is off the charts, but she doesn't feel comfortable going to the spring with company. She decides she will go alone when everyone leaves. Kim Adams figures it out and says they'll see each other later then. Haha, that dessert is keeping Bonnie on her toes. Johnny Moore bought a dessert that Bonnie is incredibly fond of. Wait, you're on a diet. Bonnie thinks back to what she told Kim Adams and Gemma Lee about the principal. What if he overheard everything? Would he despise her because of it? After a while, Bonnie came to the spring. She stepped her foot into the water. The bliss is inexpressible. It's so cool. Bonnie loves it, especially since there's not a soul around. Oh, I think Bonnie heard something. Who could be here at sunrise but her? It's Principal Joni Moore. Bonnie is in unreal shock. But why did he come here? Bonnie is perplexed, but she is fascinated by what the principal is doing now. He has filled a pitcher of water and splashes it on his body. The water runs down his muscular, handsome body. Bonnie is thrilled. She is truly enjoying this. She certainly didn't think she would be here at this early hour to watch her boss with his bare torso pouring water on himself. Johnny Moore looked in Bonnie's direction. He himself is shocked to see her. They are both in an awkward situation. Johnny Moore doesn't understand what his subordinate Bonnie is doing here. She herself wonders what her boss is doing here. After all, according to her, this is the women's department. Turning away and covering his face with his hand, Johnny Moore replied that both men and women went to this bathhouse, but on different days. That's why yesterday it was a women's bathhouse and today it was a men's bathhouse. He was surprised Bonnie didn't know that. How embarrassing for her, because he made her look like a complete fool. Bonnie apologized to her principal and said she would leave immediately. Right away, they heard other company employees nearby talking about the hot springs. The main thing is that no one should see them together like this. They think they would regret it if they left without coming all the way here to these hot springs. Bonnie's really worried. What was she going to do now? She looks around and ponders where she can hide. Johnny Moore grabs her arm. Oh, that's unexpected, but he must have thought of something. The principal's taking her somewhere at an accelerated pace. He told her to just hide behind him for now and not make any noise. Bonnie thinks this is so nice and warm. The company employees notice the director and say hello to him. They don't understand why the director has that look on his face. The guys decide it's best to just ignore it since Johnny Moore doesn't like twaddle. Bonnie is glad she hasn't been noticed so far. By the way, director Johnny Moore has quite a broad back and shoulders, apparently frequents the gym. Bonnie had definitely noticed that and liked it. She thought it wasn't exactly tactful to stare at her principal's body for so long and turned away. Bonnie can't wait for those two to leave because at this rate more people will come. The principal had noticed that these guys woke up pretty early. He told them that there is a trail around the neighborhood with beautiful scenery. That sounds intriguing. Johnny Moore offered to go there together. He also had something to say to these two guys while they were out walking. One of them replied that they had just entered the water. At this point, the other guy lightly elbowed his coworker to shut up. Eventually they agreed. Johnny Moore told them to go first and suggested they meet at the main gate in 5 minutes. He asked Bonnie if she was okay. Yes, of course she's fine, just look at the look on her face, haha. She's actually almost fainting. Johnny asked her to wait for him here for a while as he was going to go check on the situation and he would be right back. He turned the other way, took a deep breath and walked away. Bonnie thinks it's all because of her. After all, he wasn't able to enjoy the hot spring properly. She thinks she would be mad at herself if she were in her principal's shoes. A few minutes later, the principal returned and told Bonnie that no one was in right now. He asked her to put on her robes so she could go out. Bonnie grabbed the robe, and she was out of the place in a flash. Johnny Moore did a great job of handling the situation. He did what a man should do. Bonnie was flustered and embarrassed, so she ran away. Most importantly, she realized she hadn't thanked her boss for saving her. Time passed and Bonnie, along with the rest of the company, returned home. Bonnie received a notification on her phone from Kelly with the text, "Have you arrived in Dallas yet?" Kelly is the only friend that Bonnie can tell all her true feelings to. She replied that she was already home. This is a girl she met on Instagram. Kelly is English and single. Bonnie knows nothing about her appearance except that she is a woman. All because there are no personal photos on Kelly's Instagram page. Pretty weird, but it happens. Bonnie texted her that she was really tired and wanted to go to bed. She fell asleep in a second. I wonder what kind of dreams she's having right now. Oh my god. I wish I hadn't asked that. She's dreaming about her principal with a naked torso. Bonnie wakes up terrified and doesn't know what to do. She's enjoying it too much. She can't think about anything but his body. Bonnie doesn't understand how he managed to get such a body. She thinks about what's below his abs. If this thing is really like this during normal times, what will it be like during? Bonnie, what are you even thinking about right now? The next day at work. The office of company director Johnny Moore. Bonnie is very nervous before entering his office. She knocked on the door and heard Johnny Moore say, "Come in." This man had become director of planning at such a young age. Bonnie said hello to him. Johnny Moore opened his eyes and looked at her. You can see that Bonnie continues to worry. She brought the new sales report for the first month. She puts the folder with the reports on his desk. All Bonnie knows about her boss is that he works for a well-known American company, has a college degree, and prefers to wear suits. In addition, everyone is enamored with the fact that he is tall and has attractive looks. In her opinion, Joni Moore has a cynical demeanor. He is ruthlessly cold to subordinates who either lack skills or are slack. However, he has never demeaned or fired just based on his personal feelings. So, if Bonnie behaves normally and does her job well, she hopes she won't make him uncomfortable for the rest of her career. Bonnie pulls herself together and says she has something to say to her principal. He listens to her intently. Bonnie said that she never thanked him on the day of the seminar because she made Joni Moore very embarrassed in the outdoor bathtub. She's really sorry and she won't make that mistake again. Bonnie also said that thanks to her principal, she was able to prevent a much bigger incident. She is very grateful for his help. Johnny replied that there was no need to worry since he doesn't regret anything that happened that day. In his opinion, the person who should really be angry was Bonnie. He asked her not to worry about the past and just focus on her work. At this point, Bonnie thought about the fact that he tells her that everything is fine, yet he doesn't look her in the eye. Bonnie's sure he's holding a grudge. What? Bonnie, another one of your obscene fantasies. She doesn't understand why he's naked, but she's clearly enjoying it. Bonnie's mouth dropped open at the sight. She even thought she might have just gotten psychic powers or something. Johnny Moore asked Bonnie if she had anything else to say to him. She replied, "No, nothing." Bonnie wanted to leave as soon as possible, as this situation had left her in shock. She abruptly closed the door behind her and ran away. Johnny Moore is either tired or remembering something. Oh, he must have gotten a blurry vision of Bonnie's naked body, too. That's interesting. It's driving Joni incredibly crazy. Does he think about her as much as she thinks about him? A short time later, Joni Moore and Bonnie met in the elevator. All Bonnie did was glance at her boss. "Come on, again. Bonnie, this is going to drive you crazy." Johnny Moore doesn't understand why she keeps looking at him like that. He gets close to Bonnie and threatens her that if she keeps looking at him like that, his patience will end. Bonnie wondered to Johnny exactly how she was looking at him. He frankly replied that Bonnie looks at him like she wants him. Bonnie was surprised as she told him that she had never looked at him like that. Oh my God, Johnny is crazy. He pushed her against the wall and kissed Bonnie passionately on the lips. He's her principal, after all, which embarrasses her. But Bonnie doesn't want to stop. She's really enjoying this. Oh, apparently the principal is on a roll. Bonnie tells her principal that he can't do it here. He says, "Really can't we?" Well, the thing is, it's not quite right, but the alarm clock rang and Bonnie woke up in her bed. I guess it was just a dream. I'm really sorry about Bonnie. Bonnie was really upset because she had counted on it all being real. She picked up her phone and turned off the alarm clock. Bonnie is upset because he still appears in her dreams. She doesn't know what's happening to her. She sees Johnny Moore's body everywhere. Bonnie is even angry about it. After a while, Bonnie arrived at work. On her lunch break, she went to the company cafeteria. She ordered an iced mocha with whipped cream. Bonnie's order was ready and she could pick up her mocha. A man stealthily crept up on her. It turned out to be Nelson. He offered to help her carry the tray of mocha. They approached the table and Nelson asked if he could sit next to her. Bonnie didn't mind. Nelson is a new employee who has been with the company for a month. He's the new dark horse who has eclipsed the director's unique popularity. He told me in confidence that he always drinks Americano and asked me not to tell anyone about it. By the way, Nelson is being watched by Bonnie. So he's trying to get closer to her. Bonnie finally understands why her colleagues are so enthusiastic, because the main thing is to move up the career ladder by any means necessary. Nelson saw the principal through the window. Johnny Moore apparently returns after having lunch. Bonnie replied, "Yes, that seems to be the case." She almost chokes on her mocha. As soon as Bonnie sees her boss, she imagines him without clothes. It's become the norm. Sometimes she thinks she needs to see a doctor. At that moment she heard Nelson say that the principal has a big one. Bonnie responded in shock with a what? Apparently she misunderstood him. Nelson is talking about the principal's height. It's unusual for someone to have such a small face and such a height. Bonnie doesn't think that's the only thing about him that matters. Nelson looks intently at Bonnie and asks her if she has a boyfriend. She replied that she didn't have a boyfriend. But why? Bonnie doesn't understand why he wants this information. Nelson thinks it's strange that a pretty girl like Bonnie doesn't have a boyfriend. Bonnie thinks he's a womanizer. Nelson asks her, "You think I'm a womanizer, right?" She looked away and thought about the fact that he's even good at picking on people. Bonnie looked at her boss again. What was this? Oh, is it just her imagination? She thinks it looks like Joni Moore just looked at her. The work day has come to an end and Bonnie is getting ready to go home. She waits for the elevator to come to her. The doors open and she is slightly surprised at what she sees. In the elevator is Johnny Moore, who doesn't understand why Bonnie is standing still and not getting in. The thing is, Bonnie had been avoiding him on purpose so she wouldn't accidentally bump into him. Looking at her boss, all she could think about was why exactly he was supposed to be in that elevator. Well, as they say, accidents don't happen by accident. Everyone remembers Bonnie's dream, right? Yeah, she was getting a little hot in those dreams herself. Johnny Moore asks Bonnie which side of the conversation her house is on. She was shocked that he had even asked such a question. Bonnie replied that she lived in the Preston Highlands neighborhood. Joni said, "Since we're going one way." At that moment, the elevator doors opened on the 7th floor. A crowd of employees began to enter the elevator. Oh, they would just crush them. The elevator doors closed and Bonnie was pressed right up against the body of her boss. Embarrassed, she even closed her eyes. Phew, finally the first floor and Bonnie got off the elevator. As she told her principal, "See you tomorrow." Lightning fast, she ran quickly away from work. A few days later. Damn, it was that dream again. After all, it's been a week, but the dreams are still about the same thing. What should she do? She doesn't think she can ask for advice on something like this. Oh, wait, she does have her Instagram friend. Bonnie texts Kelly about her problem, telling her everything in detail. She thinks it might be because she hasn't had intimacy in a while. Kelly doesn't think that's likely. So what's going on with Bonnie? Looks like Bonnie has a crush on her boss. No, she's in love with his body. Bonnie almost choked on her food reading that. She doesn't understand. How does that happen? How can you only fall in love with a man's body? Kelly doesn't think Bonnie should be embarrassed about it, since every person is attracted to certain things about others. Some like a face and some like a personality, well, or like Bonnie likes a nice pumped-up body. Bonnie starts to think about how this makes sense. Kelly is convinced that the case with this guy needs to be given a go-ahead. Earlier, Bonnie said she couldn't decide to get serious after breaking up with that mama's boy of hers. Mama's boy? That's the jerk who made her stop believing in marriage and become a monogamist. Who knows, maybe Johnny Moore is her destiny. Who knows if Johnny Moore is her destiny? Bonnie writes to Kelly about how she doesn't even have the thought of getting into a serious relationship. Kelly recommends that she not push herself and start simple. Like her boss's muscular body, because Bonnie likes his body, right? At that corporate event, fate has assigned seats and Bonnie finds herself at the table, which can only be described in one word: fail. That's because her manager Matthew Finch was sitting across from her. A manager Matthew Finch is a man who always gets drunk at corporate parties like it's the last time. And that would be okay if he was getting drunk alone. He asked Bonnie why she wasn't drinking. It's been an hour since he poured her a drink. Mr. Matthew Finch was a problem because he was always pouring for everyone sitting around him. Bonnie pretended to drink, but Matthew Finch noticed this and he asked her why she was pretending. Oh, is it because Bonnie didn't like the alcohol he was pouring? After some thought, Bonnie decided she had to drink it, and she drank it down. All of this happened because of one man, whose name was Johnny Moore. She was kind of embarrassed to bump into him after the incident. But after Bonnie got advice from Kelly, the whole situation became more uncomfortable. It was because Bonnie was trying to sit away from him that she ended up at the same table as her manager, Matthew Finch. And her boss is doing fine, only Bonnie is suffering. It seemed to Matthew Finch that Bonnie could drink. He suggests another round of drinks. She is thinking that she needs to get out of here as soon as possible. Bonnie told Matthew Finch that she was a little drunk and needed to go out for some air. Johnny Moore notices Bonnie rushing for the exit. She went outside. Bonnie thinks it is necessary to wait it out here and come back when everyone is dispersing. She read what Kelly wrote to her about Bonnie needing to be honest with herself and figure out how she feels about this guy. But what does honest mean? That Bonnie is in love with his body. That she dreams about him all the time and doesn't know what to do about it. Some man stopped next to her. It turns out to be Principal Johnny Moore, but what is he doing here? Bonnie thinks he must have gone out for a smoke. Does he even smoke? Joni tells her that she's had a lot to drink and it's better to go home now. Bonnie realizes that she's probably drunk. She looks at her principal and sees that he doesn't look scared. She wonders frantically, what does it feel like to be hugged by such strong arms? What does it feel like to touch your face against this body? Oh God, there she goes again. Bonnie feels it's necessary to say something to the principal. Since she's pretty drunk, she might say a lot of unnecessary things to her boss right now. Wow, she asks Johnny Moore if he'd like to sleep with her once. That's a bit of a surprise to him. The reason Bonnie had actually started this conversation was because she didn't think the principal had anyone else, and it had been a long time since she had broken up with that asshole. She meant the previous man. Bonnie blushed and got embarrassed but said it would be great if she and Johnny Moore could brighten up their time together. Bonnie doesn't realize what she's saying right now, or is it the alcohol speaking for her? She contemplates saying she was joking before it's too late. She ends up saying that she's not in the mood for a serious relationship with him anyway, so nothing should weigh on the boss. And Bonnie won't have a problem with that. She's not vindictive. She's reassuring that they'll just stop after one time. It'll be like nothing ever happened. Johnny Moore addressed Bonnie by name. At that moment, Bonnie flinched. Johnny Moore, like a real man, replied that he would only do it with the woman he was marrying and then only after the wedding. Especially if it was only a one-night stand. Bonnie didn't understand what that meant. One of the female employees shouted out, asking who else wanted a drink. Johnny Moore said it was time for him to leave. Before he left, he looked Bonnie in the eye. She's speechless. She doesn't know how to react. Eventually, the principal left. At that moment, Bonnie realized that she seems to have sobered up. She's ashamed of what she said to him. After a while, Johnny Moore arrived home and decided to take a shower. He closed the water faucet, took a towel to wipe his body, put on his robe and went out into the living room. Joni was a little tired from the recent partying. He thought about something for a moment. At that moment, someone called his phone. He said he would be going to bed soon and asked someone if he was taking his medication on time. Who's he talking to? We don't know that yet. Joni finally told his contact to take care of his health no matter where he was, and ended the conversation. Could it be a mom or a dad? Or some girl? He wanted to go to sleep, but those thoughts in his head were bothering him. Joni thinks about Bonnie all the time, even remembers her voice. He's not going to sleep now, that's for sure. The next day, Bonnie was really hoping the work day wouldn't come. All she does is think back to yesterday when she said such stupid things to her boss. Bonnie thinks she'll regret it for the rest of her life. She's so ashamed. Anyway, she was honest at the time. Also, Bonnie thinks she would have been satisfied with even one time with the principal. He was so menacing at that moment when he said he would only do it with the woman he would marry. Bonnie doesn't understand why he said that. Perhaps Johnny Moore has a girl he wants to marry. Or is this his way of telling Bonnie that he doesn't want to sleep with her? She's ashamed to look her boss in the face now. Unbeknownst to Bonnie, Nelson had crept up behind her. He overheard Bonnie talking to herself about not being able to look someone in the face. Was he going to scare her like that all the time now? Nelson got to work early and was bored for those 20 minutes. He looked at Bonnie's face and concluded that she must have been up all night. Is it that obvious? Apparently so, since she has huge circles under her eyes. But still, Nelson thinks Bonnie's still a hottie with that look. First defended her, then cheered her up. She asked Nelson if the boss was still at work. No, he's not here yet. He wondered why Bonnie was asking that. Nelson assumed it was because she was afraid she might get fired. What a quick-witted guy. He hints to Bonnie that if she has any problems at work, just have her let him know, since he thinks Bonnie would feel better if she talked to someone. But how can she tell him that she was rejected by the principal after offering to sleep with him? Nelson doesn't have as much experience in terms of work as Bonnie, but certainly more experience in dealing with others. It just so happens that he's had to socialize with all kinds of people since he was a kid. Nelson thinks that will come in handy, and if Bonnie needs help, let him know. To cheer Bonnie up in some way, he put one candy on the table for her. Oh, this candy is chocolate. Bonnie doesn't understand, since Nelson isn't a kid, but he still carries around chocolate candy. He replies that he is still a kid and she will feel better if she eats this candy. Nelson doesn't know what's going on with her, but recommends that she stop getting upset. Bonnie thanked Nelson for giving her the chocolate candy. The door opened and the director walked in. Everyone in the company who saw him started to say hello to him. Nelson, in addition to saying hello to the director, also bowed to him. Bonnie froze in place. Joni Moore is excellent as always. Bonnie also bowed and said hello to the principal. She felt uncomfortable looking Joni Moore in the eye. He too looked her in the eye, but as if with some contempt. At that moment a slight chill ran down Bonnie's back. Joni Moore turned around and went to his office. At that moment Bonnie became saddened. Nelson thinks their principal is definitely an unapproachable man. Like something would happen if he smiled. He wondered, does Johnny Moore and his girlfriend act like that too? Bonnie was surprised, as she didn't know the principal possibly had a girlfriend. A couple of days ago, Nelson happened to meet Joni Moore at the mall. He was in a jewelry store. Nelson could clearly see what his boss had purchased. Joni had purchased a gold pendant with stones that was most likely intended for a young girl. Nelson is convinced that a man would never give a woman a pendant with stones if she means nothing to him. There is only one option. He is convinced that Johnny Moore has someone. Bonnie came into the principal's office. She apologized to her boss. She was very drunk last night and made a huge mistake in her opinion. Bonnie asks him to forget what she said to him last night. Johnny replies that he is in no position to forget it. How can you forget something like that? It's not a joke, it's a night together. Bonnie is ashamed. She says the words came out on their own because she was drunk. She genuinely realizes that she made the principal very uncomfortable. Johnny Moore has come to the conclusion that Bonnie says things like that to everyone when she's drunk. But she didn't expect to hear that from her boss. Bonnie vehemently denies it. It never happened, no matter how drunk she was. She assures her boss that it will never happen again. That may sound like an excuse, but Bonnie's not an easy one. She doesn't want to be mistaken for someone who molests everyone when she's drunk. Bonnie swears it's the first time it's ever happened. Johnny Moore listened to Bonnie and looked intently into her eyes. He believed her, since he knows Bonnie is not that kind of person. At this point, Bonnie blushed. She thanked her boss for understanding. Bonnie was about to leave, but the principal stopped her. She didn't understand why exactly. Johnny Moore asked Bonnie if she had any plans for the evening. No, she didn't have any plans for tonight. Great, then they'll have dinner together. Joni suggested they meet after work. At that moment, Bonnie tensed up. A dinner together and just the two of them. Not bad, but there was a catch. Her former boss, before firing her subordinate, had invited him to dinner at an expensive restaurant. So Bonnie got really stressed out and worked herself up into a tizzy. Bonnie thinks that maybe Johnny Moore wants to fire her because she asked him to sleep with her. He thought it was like she didn't like the sushi, since she never touched her food. No. She really likes sushi, she just doesn't eat it very often. Bonnie is melted by the incredibly delicious sushi. It was her first time at this restaurant, but she thought it was so popular for a reason. Bonnie looked her boss in the eye, and blushed at the sight of him looking at her. Perhaps she had done something wrong. No, it's fine, Johnny Moore replied. She asked the logical question, so why was he looking at her like that? Joni didn't immediately realize the point. What look? That look. Bonnie thinks he's giving her that tender look. Bonnie must be under a lot of stress lately because she's having more and more stupid thoughts. On the table are cups of flavored tea and delicious cookies that Bonnie hasn't eaten yet. And all because she wants to find out from her boss why he invited her here. It's very important for her to know. The thing is, Joni Moore likes Joni. Bonnie didn't realize that. Excuse me? Because he likes sushi. Joni really wanted to eat sushi, but he just didn't have anyone to eat it with. Bonnie calmed down, since all he needed was someone to go out to dinner with. It was only dinner. He only wanted to share that dinner with Bonnie. So there's no need to overcomplicate things. After the restaurant, Johnny Moore drives Bonnie home in his car. She never imagined the day would come when she would be sitting in the same car with her boss. Bonnie would have been able to get home on her own, but it was so hard for her to say no to him. I guess everything a handsome man does looks handsome. Every move he makes is so confident. By the way, in the very dream Bonnie had a couple days ago, they were also sitting in the car. Their hands were intertwined tightly. They were savoring every moment they spent together. Joni was kissing her on the lips like she was the love of his life. Hey Bonnie, come back to reality, stop daydreaming. Joni wondered why Bonnie was so freaked out. He dropped her off in front of the house and it's pouring rain outside. Yeah, the weather's not great. Bonnie got out of the car. Johnny Moore walked up to her and pulled out an umbrella to keep her dry from the rain. He offers to walk her home since he is worried that Bonnie might catch a cold without an umbrella. She replies that there's no need to worry, she's perfectly capable of walking home on her own. But Joni insists on walking her home after all. Bonnie, stop turning down your boss's offers. He's taken care of you, and he's taken care of you repeatedly. It's really bad weather out there. Once again, Johnny Moore is acting like a real man. Bonnie feels like she's being escorted out after a date. Maybe he has something else to say to her. She warned Joni Moore that if there was anything he wanted to ask or say, he could do it right now. Bonnie squeezed her bag strap and added that if this was all about last night's party, then. At that point, Johnny Moore interrupted her and replied that if he remembered correctly, he'd said he wouldn't touch the subject again. So he had nothing more to say to Bonnie then. Joni thought for a moment and asked her what she thought about the wedding. Bonnie wondered why he was talking about the wedding all of a sudden. She asked him a direct question, why did he start talking about the wedding so suddenly? Joni replied that Bonnie herself had said that he could ask about anything. Bonnie believes that a wedding is always seen as a blessing and everyone says that marriage is an opportunity to acquire a new family member. People who love each other live together until death do them part. They are sure to trust and take care of each other till the very end. Isn't that the perfect marriage that everyone wants and believes in? Bonnie, however, believes it is only a fairy tale. She recalls moments from her childhood, broken liquor bottles, and the constant scandals of her parents. For the protagonists of a fairy tale, it's always a happy ending. Only these are just dreams invented by people. What lies behind this rainbow facade? If you look into the essence and put aside all the beautiful words, there you can see something else. I'm sorry, we should break up. That promised love will be over in a few years. And then you'll just be passers-by for each other. You can see that Bonnie is in a lot of pain from the memories. By the way, she has no naive fantasies about marriage. Joni Moore hopes that one day Bonnie will change her mind. She doesn't quite understand in what way. What if one day the right man comes into her life? The one she can't push away. Bonnie is sure that even then she won't marry that man, and no matter how wonderful he is, Joni thinks time will tell. Don't jump to conclusions. Bonnie thanked the principal for walking her home. She asked him to be careful on the way back. Bonnie stepped to the threshold, but she was called out by Johnny Moore. He repeated what Bonnie had told him earlier about the marriage. A marriage really isn't as romantic and beautiful as it may seem. But Joni believes that not every marriage ends in failure. Some people see value in married life. That may be true, but Bonnie is sure that's not her story. But why does she think that? Johnny Moore has no idea why Bonnie hates the idea of marriage so much, but he's sure the one she needs will show up in due time. The man who will find the way to Bonnie's heart. A man who will truly love. Hearing those words, Bonnie clutched the strap of her bag. She told Joni that he was saying it so confidently, because he's really sure of it. Joni Moore thinks he can be that man for her. The next day at work. The work day finally came to an end and Bonnie completed all the tasks. Looks like the principal left work early today. Nothing has changed since that day. He's acting the same as before. Except in Bonnie's dreams he's acting more romantic. It's getting harder and harder for her to look him in the eye. Lobby, first floor. Bonnie is annoyed that it's raining outside. She hopes that the rain will end soon. She recalls Joni Moore's words, a man who will truly love her. Because of the rain, she couldn't hear what he said at the very end. Oh, Bonnie had a bus to catch. She rushes as fast as she can to the bus. She also didn't have her umbrella with her. She spotted someone. It's her ex-boyfriend Andrew, and he's sitting in a cafe with some girl. What a meeting. Bonnie got so caught up in it that she didn't catch her bus. That afternoon Andrew tells her that they need to break up. He's not sure he could marry her. But Bonnie is outraged since their parents met a couple days ago. What happened? Andrew blatantly told her that his mom doesn't think he should marry Bonnie. What? I mean, they've already picked out the banquet hall and the wedding outfits. Does Andrew want to tell Bonnie that his mom is running his life? Bonnie thinks it's up to him to choose who he marries and who he spends the rest of his days with. Andrew responds that he shouldn't get involved with a person disappointed by his parents. He is sure that there is no such thing as a love marriage and it is necessary to listen to the family. At this point, Bonnie's tears flowed. People at other tables noticed the couple arguing. Andrew has become uncomfortable with the fact that they are being noticed, and plus Bonnie is crying. She doesn't understand why. Is her family not good enough for their family? Is that why Andrew can't marry Bonnie? Because she grew up without a mother? Or maybe because her father is an alcoholic? Andrew reminded Bonnie that she had previously told him that she wasn't sure if she could be a good mother because of growing up without one herself. He was very worried that she wouldn't be able to cope and take care of a future child. Yes, Bonnie did have those thoughts, but only she thought she could overcome everything if Andrew was there for her. Andrew's mother is probably worried about this very thing, and of course she was disappointed to meet Bonnie's father. Andrew asked Bonnie if she were in his mother's shoes, would she want to let her child go to a family like that? He apologized to Bonnie. Andrew still loves her. However, his mom has already made up her mind and there's nothing he can do about it. Is this really someone Bonnie has grown to love so much that she has decided to marry him? Her hands were shaking very badly. Andrew squeezes her hands and says he realizes this is all unexpected, but he asks to be realistic as it is too late to change his mom's mind. Bonnie was angry with him. She answered him not to use his own mother as an excuse. Since he loves his mommy so much, let him marry her, you mama's boy. Andrew was stunned at those words. A what? A mama's boy? Bonnie had warned him to never, from now on, never dare he come into her life. She walked out of the cafe and wanted to forget about Andrew forever. That day she made a promise to herself, never to believe in everlasting love, to never commit her life to anyone, never to marry. That woman was probably raised in a good family. The perfect wife that everyone dreams of. The woman who can create a happy family and raise a child. Bonnie feels like a jerk. No, you're not. At that moment Andrew looked out the window. His breath caught when he saw Bonnie. Did he think she was peeking in on their date? Bonnie decided it was imperative to get out of here as soon as possible. Turning around she ran into her boss. By the way, Bonnie has very pretty eyes. Joni Moore wondered why she wasn't watching the weather forecast. She replied that she was the kind of person who didn't believe in weather forecasts. Bonnie never thought she would be in that car again. Bonnie asked the principal if he left work on time today. Yes, he did. Except that Joni Moore had forgotten something in the office and happened to meet Bonnie on his way back. She thanked him for giving her a ride home. Bonnie feels indebted to him. If only she hadn't met Andrew's eyes, she wouldn't be riding with the principal in his car right now. Calming herself down, Bonnie is only in that car because she didn't want Andrew to see her so insignificant, running away and soaking wet in the rain. Bonnie thinks it's unfair that she's having trouble believing in love and the bastard is already dating another girl like nothing ever happened. He seemed happier even than when they first met. Would Bonnie ever get over this feeling? It would be nice if she had a drink with a friend right now. But there's one problem, everyone is either married or with kids. Bonnie decided that the best option was to have a can of beer at home. Joni asked her if perhaps she needed to be home by a certain hour. A curfew? At her age? In that case, Joni suggested she stop somewhere for a drink. They went into an upscale local bar. They ordered themselves alcoholic drinks. The bartender poured first for Joni Moore and then for Bonnie. He took the glass and began to savor the drink. Bonnie watched the process. Joni Moore wondered why she was looking at him but not drinking herself. Eventually, Bonnie decided that it was time for her to have a drink, too. Joni Moore smiled and told her to take her time, as no one would dare to take away her drink. Bonnie doesn't understand why he's smiling like that. The bartender asked if she wanted another drink. Bonnie said yes. The order will be ready in a minute. Bonnie wonders why the boss asked her out of the blue. The thing is, he wanted a drink, but had no one to call. It was the same last time. He said he didn't have anyone to go to the sushi bar with. Bonnie thinks it's weird that such a handsome guy didn't have someone to go out for a drink or a meal with. She shouldn't be looking for some other meaning in that, but Bonnie remembered Nelson's words. There's only one option here. I'm sure the chief has a girlfriend. Bonnie asked the direct question, why can't the principal have a drink with his girlfriend? Girlfriend? He didn't even know he had one. Bonnie hadn't expected the fact that he didn't have a girlfriend. After all, she seriously thought the principal had a girlfriend. Then what about what Nelson said? He definitely said that the principal was buying a pendant with stones for a young girl. But maybe Joni Moore really doesn't have a fiancé. He asked if Bonnie would be interested in knowing the truth about whether he had a girlfriend. Not that she'd be interested, it's not like it matters if she knows or not. Come on, of course she'd be very interested. Bonnie drank her cocktail in one gulp because of her excitement. Joni Moore had warned her that just because what's in the glass tastes like coffee doesn't mean you should drink it like it is. This was her fourth glass and the degree of this cocktail was pretty high. Bonnie calmed him down and told him not to worry, she won't get drunk off the cocktail. What is she looking at? Oh my god, Bonnie, you're already drunk. She feels like she's intoxicated. Bonnie decided to go to the bathroom. Oh, no. She fell. What a sweet and fresh scent, so familiar. Bonnie had smelled it somewhere before. That's right, it's the boss's cologne. And there he is. Bonnie doesn't understand what he's doing in her room. Joni Moore asked her if she was okay. He was very worried about her since she hadn't woken up in a long time. He tried several times to wake her up. Joni Moore was going to leave several times once Bonnie was safe, but she collapsed right in front of the front door. Bonnie thinks it sounds like a dream. Especially since he can't be in her room, it's definitely a dream. She asked Joni why he was wearing clothes today. Joni Moore was surprised at the question. Bonnie, deciding that it was a dream, asked her boss if he was going to take his clothes off now. Sighing, Joni replied that it would be better to talk tomorrow when Bonnie was better. Joni hesitated. Bonnie, deciding that it was a dream, decided to be proactive. She reached for him with her hand, grabbed her boss by the shoulder, and threw him down on the bed. Honestly, he was in unreal shock. Bonnie sat on top of him. Wow, what a moment. Bonnie was surprised that Joni Moore was so timid tonight. After all, in her other dreams he was incredibly passionate. Bonnie, are you taking off your clothes? She threw her clothes off on the floor. Bonnie, what are you doing? Are you out of your mind? She told her boss she was going to help him undress. Bonnie, when you sober up, you're gonna regret it, you're gonna be ashamed. But she's confident in her actions. Bonnie unbuttons his shirt. Joni Moore grabs her hand and thinks it's time to stop. Otherwise, he's not vouching for himself. Bonnie asks Joni if he doesn't like it. It's very hard for him to admit it, but he is practically unable to resist Bonnie. Joni grabs her and flipped Bonnie onto her back. All he wants to know is, what does she want from him? There must be a reason why she's having these dreams. Joni Moore asked Bonnie to tell him that. He runs his finger over her lip and begs her to tell him the truth. Bonnie is madly in love with her boss. Oh my god, so they have no way out. Joni can barely contain himself either. He takes off his jacket and leans into Bonnie. His hand goes higher and higher up Bonnie's body. Passions are running high and he's going to do this to her all night long until Na starts begging him to stop. Although, no, he won't stop even then. There's just one little but before they enjoy their lovemaking to the fullest. Joni Moore is proposing marriage before they sleep together. What? Really? Bonnie woke up to those words. What wedding? Bonnie's face is blank after that offer. Joni has previously told her that he would only sleep with the woman he shares his life with. Bonnie doesn't get it. He told her he doesn't have a fiancée. But apparently Bonnie misunderstood him. He'll only sleep with the woman he marries. If the principal's single, does that mean he hasn't slept with any women? Bonnie's head is spinning with this whole thing. Is he trying to tell her that he's keeping his virginity? That can't be right. Johnny Moore looks stunning and easily attracts the eyes of the girls. This is a man who could have dozens of women at the snap of his fingers. He replied that he is a virgin. Wow, that's some news. To all of this, Bonnie replied that if these excuses are just because he doesn't want to make love, then he shouldn't go that far. He has nothing more to say. So it's true. It's really hard to believe. Bonnie is incredibly shocked by this information. Johnny Moore has never slept with a girl and it's the truth. That's some stamina for a man, wow. He moved closer to Bonnie and asked her a question. Would she agree to marry him? Realistically, I mean, there's no reason for her to marry Johnny Moore. First of all, marriage is not a joke, it's a serious step, and secondly, she's a non-monogamist. Non-monogamists prefer to live their entire lives alone. Joni realized this and decided it was time for him to leave. He just asked Bonnie to let him know if she changed her beliefs. He buttoned his shirt and headed for the exit. Lastly, he said, "We'll continue when you're ready." The next day at work, Bonnie walked into the coffee shop with her coworkers. The girls are discussing the love show that kept them awake last night. If only they knew what kept Bonnie awake last night. Bonnie noticed that the principal was down at the cafe, too. Bonnie's coworkers emphasized that their boss looks good today. They think he looks better than some celebrities and it would be nice if he was a little more affable. Kim Adams really likes Johnny Moore's muscular body. By the way, Gemma Lee loves him too. They are insanely curious who the lucky girl who will marry him is. Kim Adams thinks it's certainly none of them. Bonnie recalls Joni saying that he told her he would only sleep with the woman he would share his life with. Apparently Bonnie has given his proposal some thought. The principal isn't just a man of honor, he hasn't had anyone yet, it's something mind-boggling. In Bonnie's opinion, this image in no way matches his state of mind. Joni had told her he would do this to her all night, until she begged him to stop. That feels like two different people. Bonnie still can't believe it. She stood up abruptly and told the girls she had to go. Bonnie must have rubbed a hole in it, just staring at him. As an excuse, she told her coworkers that she had something to do and to take their time going to their workplace. Johnny Moore noticed Bonnie leaving the cafe. A few days later, Bonnie barely dragged herself down the hallway, sighing languidly. She was really scared. Bonnie saw her boss come out of the elevator with other company employees. He didn't seem to have noticed her yet. She started looking around for an emergency place to hide. She opened the first door she could find. But she can't avoid him all the time. Except that every time Bonnie sees him, memories of that night flash through her mind. She's incredibly scared to face him. Bonnie decides that it looks like he's already gone, it's safe to come out. What a surprise! She opened the door and bumped into her boss. A cold sweat broke out on Bonnie's face. She screamed with all her might that the whole office heard her scream. Johnny Moore closed the door to that room so no one would overhear. He wants to understand why Bonnie keeps avoiding him. Bonnie, like a little girl, decided to answer that Johnny Moore made it all up. She never avoids her principal. It's as if the boss has Bonnie cornered and asked her to tell only the truth. He wonders if she's already thought about his proposal. Bonnie pretends not to know what he's talking about. He means about marrying him. Bonnie doesn't know what to say to her boss. At that moment, a chill runs down her spine. He's joking, right? But Johnny Moore never jokes about anything like that. Looks like she needs to answer Johnny Moore something either way. Bonnie started talking about how marriage is not a joke. It's not a dinner out, it's a big decision. Oh well, he decided to give her more time to think about it. But Bonnie won't budge from her principles even if he gives her more time. But still, she feels something different about him. But she doesn't want to get into a serious relationship with him. Bonnie's convinced that Johnny Moore just doesn't get her. If it's because of what Bonnie said that night, she was out of it because she was drunk. She never wanted a serious relationship with her boss. Johnny Moore seems to think that Bonnie is in a serious relationship with him every night if you take into account her dreams. He believes that there is no reason to feel uncomfortable. A person's desire to build a relationship is a basic human instinct, it's normal. It just shows how important they are to each other. Humans are social creatures. Laws and systems are invented for a reason. This looks like a presentation. Johnny Moore speaking as if behind a podium saying that if everyone behaved as they wanted to just to satisfy their desires, then what's the difference between a human and an animal? Bonnie generally agrees with Johnny. Apparently she was influenced by his powers of persuasion. After finishing his speech, Johnny Moore grabbed the document in his hands and asked her if she might finally want to marry him. Bonnie is amazed that every conversation they have ends with a marriage proposal. It doesn't matter to her how much she wants Johnny, it's not enough for her to marry him. Besides, Bonnie has already said that she doesn't believe in marriage. She has no plans to marry Johnny or anyone else. Johnny Moore realizes that she won't agree to the wedding that easily. He knows that Bonnie has a negative attitude toward marriage. Except Johnny can't get her words out of his head that she wants him. He can't pass up this chance. It's not that Bonnie isn't at all interested, and even despite all her negative attitude, but Johnny Moore will make her change her mind. Kelly texts Bonnie about how she's doing with that guy she's been dreaming about. Can Bonnie tell her? Although, Kelly certainly doesn't know Johnny Moore and she's not likely to gossip about it. Bonnie starts writing her a long message telling her the latest events that happened that very night. She writes the message quite long so as not to leave anything out. Eventually, Kelly reads the message from Bonnie and is horrified to learn that Johnny Moore is a virgin. Kelly doesn't understand how he could have rejected Bonnie. But it wasn't quite like that. She also thought at first that Johnny didn't want her, but he really doesn't sleep with anyone specifically until after the wedding. Kelly can't believe men like that even exist. But she's seen a study somewhere that says there's about 1% of men like that in America. She thinks it's probably impossible to have a relationship with him without getting married. But Bonnie said she'd never get married. Who would have thought that the man who would stir Bonnie's heart would be the one who denies intimacy outside of marriage? What mockery of fate. Bonnie thinks the heavens themselves must be telling her it's not her destiny to be with him. Maybe it's for the best. What if she had accepted his proposal and spent the night with him? The situation would have been even more awkward. But she decided it wasn't worth crossing that line. It would be better to just forget the whole thing. Bonnie has turned off the lights in the room and is about to fall asleep. But her thoughts keep her from falling asleep. In her head is the voice of Johnny Moore saying, "You're going to change your mind. I'm going to make you change your mind." What was in his head when he said that? Bonnie better not think about it and stop obsessing over her boss. The next day at work, Nelson wonders what happened at Bonnie's, since Bonnie looks like she has a lot of problems. This guy is pretty savvy. She replies that it's just disturbing dreams. Nelson now wonders what her dreams are about. Bonnie blushed with embarrassment. It's not like she's going to tell him she's dreaming about her naked boss. Bonnie decided to mimic with her hands what she was dreaming about. Nelson realized she must be having nightmares. Not exactly. Explaining in simple words, Bonnie said that the person she was dreaming about was someone she didn't want to see, and he kept appearing in her dreams. Nelson concluded from her words that if it's someone she doesn't want to see, Bonnie is probably jealous of that person. But she doesn't have any hostile thoughts towards that person. Although, come to think of it, before that incident in the hot springs, the principal was just a problematic boss. But over the past few days, Bonnie had seen him in a different light. It seems Johnny Moore is better than she thought he was. Nelson wondered who the man was. At that moment, Bonnie received a message from the principal waiting for her with her prepared reports in his office. A few minutes later, Bonnie arrived at the principal's office. Johnny Moore allows her to enter as he is very interested in the counts that Bonnie has prepared. He scrutinizes those readings. Bonnie seems to have detailed everything. Did she make some kind of mistake? No, everything is in order. Johnny Moore thanked Bonnie for the work she had done. She was glad she did it right. Johnny Moore has something he wants to ask her, as it seems that Bonnie is pretty close to Nelson. He has seen the two of them together on numerous occasions. Since Bonnie was in charge of training when Nelson joined the company, she thinks he's closer to her than other coworkers. However, Johnny Moore himself appointed her as Nelson's trainer. Johnny Moore was surprised that he had personally given such an instruction to Bonnie. He took a deep breath and thought about the hole he had dug for himself. Johnny asked him to ignore him and asked Bonnie if she had time to eat dinner tonight. No, she already had plans for tonight. Then how about tomorrow? Bonnie replied that she had plans tomorrow too. Apparently after tomorrow she has plans too. Johnny Moore asked a specific question, does she like him? Bonnie worriedly replied that who would ask a man to sleep with her twice if she didn't have any feelings. Johnny Moore thought the first time it was the effects of alcohol, the second time it was no longer a coincidence. He believes that Bonnie genuinely wanted him and her outlook has changed lately. She looks at Johnny differently. At this point, Bonnie hesitates. Had Johnny Moore really gotten it all wrong? Was this whole thing a mistake? It's not that Bonnie hates him, but she doesn't love him. She only wants to sleep with him once, but certainly not to marry him. Bonnie doesn't know how to tell him about these doubts. It seems that Bonnie herself has stirred up these strange feelings and has taken it too far. It was all easy in theory, but in reality it was simply not feasible. Johnny Moore reached out his hand to touch Bonnie's arm, but she pulled it away. Oh well, then he would wait until she agreed to have dinner with him. He promises not to do anything until then. So Johnny Moore asked Bonnie to stop avoiding him. Back home, Bonnie started packing her things in her suitcase. She is going on an overseas business trip tomorrow with the man she was going to avoid. They would have to spend 4 days and 3 nights together. It's hot in Singapore, isn't it? Bonnie wants to bring a dress. Although, no, it's only a business trip, a dress is too much. I wonder what kind of dress Johnny Moore would like. Did she just really think of that? Bonnie recalls his words. Do you hate me? I'll wait. I'll wait until you agree to have dinner with me. She decided to text her friend Kelly. Bonnie writes that she doesn't know what Johnny has in mind. Kelly suggests that maybe Johnny Moore has some intimacy issues since they haven't slept together and he wants to get married right away. I don't think so. If not, then maybe he really does want to marry Bonnie. Kelly is sure that's always the case with men. If Johnny Moore really likes Bonnie, he'll want to marry her first and foremost, not sleep with her. Bonnie is surprised because of the fact that if he really likes her, then how can he hold back? How can he push away the woman he wants? Kelly reminded Bonnie that people are attracted to different things. They'd never really talked before the hot spring situation. And Bonnie had never flirted with him, never even been nice to him. In her opinion, Johnny Moore just couldn't fall in love with her for what she thought was no reason. Kelly recommended that Bonnie, instead of trying to find out what was in his head, better for her to figure out how she felt. Figure out exactly what kind of relationship Bonnie wanted with this man. Bonnie sighed heavily and collapsed onto her mountain of scattered belongings. The day has come when they must leave for Singapore. Bonnie and Johnny Moore sit next to each other, but you can see how tense she is at his presence around her. He asks Bonnie if she is worried. Perhaps she's afraid of heights or airplanes. As if not, she's not afraid of airplanes at all and she's never had motion sickness. The reason Bonnie's nervous is because she's only going on a business trip with her boss. Bonnie thinks that if junior manager Nelson went with them, she would definitely feel better. She's been so diligent about avoiding the director, and now they're going on a trip for 4 days and 3 nights. Johnny Moore decided to reassure Bonnie and said that an airplane is the safest mode of transportation. In fact, the probability of an accident is negligible, about 1 in a million. It's true that the fatality rate in such incidents is 100%. Is that him trying to reassure Bonnie? Joni assures her that nothing will happen, not to worry, since he's lucky in life. As long as she's with him, she's in no danger. Bonnie wriggles her fingers, thinking about the fact that nothing bad will happen. A few hours later, they flew to Singapore. The company had pre-booked hotel rooms for them. Joni Moore and Bonnie took the elevator to the 30th floor. Bonnie thought that the scheduled meetings went fine. The boss thanked her for doing a good job. Since they were tired, it was best to go take a break now. Bonnie wished the director a good rest and entered her room. It was a beautifully cleaned room and the view from the window must be great, especially at night. Bonnie swung the window all the way open. "Wow," she said. "This is really quite beautiful." Incredible view from her window. Too bad she didn't have anyone to admire the view with. But she thinks she needs to send the pictures to Kelly. Kelly loves the pictures. But she knows a delicious restaurant in Singapore that serves great crab. Bonnie is hesitant to tell Kelly or not, but anyway, she's on a business trip with her boss. As it happens, it's just the two of them. Kelly said, "You mean the Virgin guy?" "Yes. They will be here for 4 days and 3 nights. It's so awkward she wants to literally fall through the ground." Kelly recommends taking this chance to find out how her boss really feels about her. Kelly is sure he definitely has feelings for Bonnie. She doesn't think anyone is capable of saying "I'm a virgin and let's get married." Bonnie needs to figure out what kind of relationship she wants with this virgin. Kelly is hoping they will realize the feelings they have for each other and confess already. Will Bonnie even flash any feelings for Johnny Moore? Bonnie seems unlikely since he said he won't sleep with a girl until after the wedding. Bonnie asked Kelly how many men are able to maintain their chastity by being alone with a girl they like for 4 days and 3 nights. Kelly replied that maybe Bonnie could change his beliefs today. If things don't work out during this business trip, then he doesn't see her as a woman or he has problems down there. Kelly says some words that make Bonnie start to worry. And now she's losing sleep. Oh, Bonnie jumped at the knock on the door. The time had already passed midnight. "I wonder who came in there." Someone said, "It's me, open up." Oh, right, of course, it was Johnny Moore. Bonnie opened the door for him. She asked him what he was doing here at this hour. The point is, when he thought Bonnie was in the next room, he just couldn't sleep. Johnny Moore said he was at his limit. Wow, he abruptly and unexpectedly picked Bonnie up in his arms and carried her to the bed. Looking into her eyes, Johnny said that he wanted her right now. He kissed her passionately on the lips. Bonnie asked him to stop. After all, he had said he would only do it with his wife. Johnny Moore replied that it didn't make sense anymore. Bonnie blushed and became embarrassed. Joni gently began kissing her neck. Bonnie asked her boss to slow down. "Stop. Something's not right here. Come on." Was that a dream again? Bonnie thinks this is unbearable. How much longer are these dreams going to go on? Will it only stop if she and Johnny Moore get married? Some time later, Bonnie and her boss are riding in the car to a business meeting. He asked her if she had a good night's sleep. Bonnie replies that not really. In fact, she couldn't even sleep a wink after she woke up from that dream. Joni said that he had trouble sleeping too. But why? Well, he doesn't know. Maybe because Johnny Moore was with Bonnie? What? Bonnie was shocked to hear that. He didn't understand what Bonnie was thinking that made her face turn red. She turned away and said she wasn't thinking anything like that and her face wasn't red at all. Johnny didn't take his eyes off Bonnie for a long time. He confided to her that he would never tire of looking at her. Bonnie wondered, when had he ever looked at her? All the time. Ever since Joni had started watching her. Bonnie suggested having a few drinks instead of dinner. The appetizers at the bars are pretty good now and it's even better than dinner. She didn't say that because she absolutely wanted to have a drink with him. Joni Moore figured it out. They ended up going down from their rooms to the bar where there was just a free table by the window. They ordered appetizers and alcohol. Bonnie decided to drink in one gulp. Johnny Moore asked her to drink in moderation. He'd said he wouldn't be responsible for Bonnie when she passed out. He didn't mean to say that he would leave her just because she was drunk. Johnny Moore said he's not that uncouth. Bonnie knows that. She always thought he wasn't. Sure, he probably won't leave her here, but Bonnie doesn't know where he might take her, does she? At this point, she's really scared. Johnny Moore thinks it will be troublesome if Bonnie can't tell the difference between dream and reality like last time. If that happens again, even he won't be able to tell how it will end. It would be better if Bonnie didn't trust him so easily. In her case, it was better not to trust Johnny at all. Bonnie tensed slightly. Yes, he was joking, no need to worry. Johnny Moore wouldn't kidnap her. Bonnie wondered, why did it have to be a joke? Wow, Bonnie's face is red and she thinks she's lost her mind. What did she even just think of? What a delightful night Singapore is. Johnny Moore and Bonnie decided to take a walk around the city. Since it's one of the most popular tourist spots, there are so many couples here. I wonder if the people around them think they're a couple too. Or is it just Bonnie who thinks that? She looked around and then focused her gaze on Johnny. She wondered what was in that man's mind. Here was their last night in this city-state. Bonnie was surprised that time seemed to go faster abroad. To be honest, when Bonnie found out they were going on a business trip together, she was a little worried. After all, this is her second business trip abroad, so she thought that she would be a burden and would not be able to help Johnny Moore in any way. But she is glad that everything went well. Johnny is sure he's a lucky man. He wasn't worried about their trip together, only slightly excited. Moreover, he was so excited that he couldn't even sleep the first night. Bonnie wondered, since when was the principal so smiley? Even if he smiled, he always looked stern. Bonnie answered him that she was seeing him in a different light lately. Johnny Moore has become more outspoken, laughing more and more sly than she thought. In any case, Bonnie thinks he has many sides to him that she didn't realize. He asked Bonnie if she really didn't like that about him. No, she couldn't say she didn't like it, just this. Bonnie got out of the situation and said she thought it was cute. Johnny Moore thought she just confessed. What? No. It wasn't a confession at all. That's not what Bonnie meant at all. She just told him again that he was more cunning than she realized. Johnny Moore doesn't act like that with everyone, just Bonnie. All of this is only possible because she is her. Johnny looked into Bonnie's beautiful eyes. Swallowing saliva with excitement, Bonnie thought, why me? What on earth does the principal think of her? Since when had his feelings for her changed? After a while, they returned to the hotel. They got into the elevator to go up to the 30th floor. Bonnie's fingers are fidgeting with excitement. They are soaking wet from the rain. Bonnie thinks her boss is very attractive when he's wet. Bonnie, stop thinking about it. They got to the 30th floor and the elevator doors opened. Johnny Moore and Bonnie got out and walked to their rooms. Before they separated, they looked each other in the eye. Johnny Moore had something to say to Bonnie. He complimented her on what a great job she had done. She had an early departure tomorrow morning, so he asked her not to stay out too late. Yeah, of course she understood. But Bonnie also complimented her boss for doing a good job too. Johnny Moore replied, okay, bye, and slammed the door behind him. Bonnie was very surprised. That's it? Is this how it's going to end like this? Not understanding the reaction from her boss, Bonnie ended up going into her room. After taking a shower, she is still thinking about it. Bonnie's really shocked. He just replied okay, bye. Bonnie even thought about the fact that maybe she wasn't attractive. She remembered what Kelly wrote to her about how if Bonnie doesn't sleep with her boss during this business trip, then he doesn't see her as a woman or he has health issues. It seems to Bonnie as if he's not interested in her. Or has he changed his mind? It all boils down to Johnny Moore doesn't see Bonnie as a woman. Wait a minute, or he's got a real health problem. Bonnie opened the refrigerator and took out a can of alcoholic beverage. She opened the can and drank it in a gulp. Bonnie thinks that she shouldn't be discouraged. But why was she so sad? In his hotel room, Johnny Moore was busy working. He was reading various documents. Since his schedule is completely irregular and he is busy working even after hours. Johnny heard something. He's sure he heard a sound. Someone knocking on the door very insistently. The hotel staff certainly wouldn't knock this late and unannounced. So it could only be one person. Johnny Moore wonders what Bonnie is doing here at this hour. And Bonnie can barely stand on her own 2 feet. Apparently she's had too much to drink. She's mumbling that she can't sleep. Maybe she's sleepwalking. We should wake her up before someone sees her. Johnny Moore holds her up so she doesn't fall in the hallway. Oh, who do we have here? A smiling Bonnie noticed her very attractive boss standing in front of her.